The stock market is dropping and it's not stopping. We're going to talk about what helped us make this move to the downside, some August 1st tariffs, and more. So you guys don't want to miss out on this video because this is going to help you guys out, especially starting in August, because we do got some bearish sentiment coming in, but also we do have a potential for a V-shaped recovery, making more returns than you ever could imagine. But let's get started with this video. So Figma went insane yesterday as they got listed publicly. Everybody was talking about this before the market opened and even way before it as well. But it did not disappoint overall. So what are they? It is basically a powerful tool that allows teams to work together on powerful design tools. They use AI for most of their tools, which makes it easier and faster for simple and complex designs. It makes it simple to create all in one place with collaborations overall. And I mean, honestly, like making websites and stuff like that, it just makes it way easier, way better. And honestly, man, you could work together with a bigger team. And there's a lot of people and companies that are also into this. So some companies can include Netflix, New York Times, Airbnb, Zoom, Duolingo, Dropbox, Microsoft, Netflix, and a lot of other companies in total. And honestly, man, this company can grow for your long term. With that being said, it is kind of too early right now, especially how other companies debut. So honestly, man, keep that in mind because this one can drop. Maybe give it like some time. Like this one, you can give like a lot of time, but you can make a lot of money in the short term. This is one of those short term plays that might be beneficial to you overall. But with that all being said, man, we are going to the upside, and it did start at that $80 level. And before it got listed publicly, it was trading at like $33. So a lot of people, dump some of their earnings and probably going to take some profits as well up top that invested at those low numbers. But this one did insane yesterday. Everybody's talking about it, so I wanted to include it just so you guys don't get FOMO into it. Don't get too much FOMO. Don't buy it at the highs, of course, but you might see some more movement to the upside. But please just have your patience with this one overall. And honestly, man, this one just started. So a couple to name. First one, I want to start off with Uber because Uber did start off pretty decently for a couple of days and weeks, even months. But with that being said, we did start going to the downside a decent amount. But if we just had our patience a little bit more, it went up. But that's Uber overall. It just depends on how good Figma truly is. I showed you guys the companies that are kind of like already using it and probably more companies overall. And they got a lot of light shined on them recently. With it all being said, man, just have your patience. We had some other ones that didn't do too good, like Facebook. Facebook did horribly when they did their debut just because of how they did it and just the news that came out while it basically debuted. And we also had other ones as well, like Snapchat. Snapchat started pretty high, but then sold off like a lot. Honestly, got down to $6. If you would have bought it at that $6 level, you would have been great. So honestly, if Figma can make a movement like Snapchat and you can get it at like $10, $20, you're going to make a decent amount of money in the long term. And that could just be your next stock that you just hold for a couple of years. And honestly, man, you'll be looking at your portfolio one day and being amazed, by the way. But with that all being said, man, look at Figma, but don't trade it too much. Don't have your FOMO. And honestly, just expect a downward trend sooner or later with it if we do start going to the downside. But we've been seeing this a lot where, it gets a lot of hype for like the first couple of days and then it starts selling off a decent amount. But since we're already in the daily, let's look at the SPY overall. We do have 3 red candles back to back. And honestly, man, we've been getting some news that did bring the market back up. But honestly, we've been seeing the market fall down a decent amount, slow down, not really making the highs that we were expecting, other than, some earnings. We see Nvidia, Meta, Microsoft. Nvidia didn't report earnings, but we've seen a big move with the Meta and Microsoft movements, and now we're selling off a big amount. And honestly, man, we've just been rallying up based on news, selling off, showing some weakness, and now we're finally showing a bigger sign of weakness. That 626 level is going to be key. If we break below that, look at that 620 level, and then honestly, lower than that, we might get a bigger sell-off overall. So the second term post-election doesn't really look too good in August neither. So this data might be bringing the overall stock market certainty down as well. So honestly, man, it's been down for a couple of presidents in their second year term. And honestly, Donald Trump, this can probably bring it down too. It's a second term, but you never know. Tariff news, maybe if Trump comes out with another pause, he can change his data point. But with that being said, man, we just got a bunch of tariffs that we're going to be talking about in a couple of minutes. But with that being said, man, literally, man, this doesn't really look too good for August overall. But with that being said, if we look at the ending of July and then beginning of August, we did have a big fat sell-off last year. And then we had that V-shaped recovery towards like the 8th, towards like the 7th to the 8th of the month. So honestly, man, just keep this in mind overall because we will get a little bit more volatility into the market. But we have the potential of getting a V-shaped recovery with the sell-off. So honestly, man, just have your patience. But if we do start selling off even more, you guys can get into some put options. And I recommend selling those put options around the 5th of August. And then boom, that's when you can get your call options again. And then we might have another dip at around the 7th, but then, it starts going up after the 8th. So just have your patience with this one. Have your plays a little bit longer term out. If you still want to get call options, just get them past the 15th. I'm recommending maybe even the ending of August in general, because ending of August, it still looks pretty good overall. So honestly, man, just have your patience with it. We might have a bigger sell-off overall, but then we might have the potential to have a V-shaped recovery. The tariffs weren't really too bad that came out. We're still waiting on China, and we're still waiting on some official other tariffs too. But we do have tariffs more official overall in general. So honestly, man, if you guys are in some call options, you lost some money, just reposition yourself. I personally have a call option on NVIDIA, and honestly, it didn't really do too good. I got it at that 176 level. 176 level when this candlestick went down. It filled my order, and I was like, okay, not too bad. But then we have that little gap downwards for pre-market, so I'm gonna still lose on this play. So I'm probably gonna reposition and get a put option. But it really just depends on how the overall market looks, because I do want to watch some key levels to see if we can break below it. And if we do, that's when I'm going to scope out my put options, make some money in and out plays, maybe some day trades today, because I don't really want to hold it over the weekend, honestly. Anything can happen over the weekend. So before we get to some earnings, let's talk about some of the tariffs. So we do have a pause, but the pause is still 25% for Mexico until they basically talk about more deals. China has until August 12th, but hopefully we get a little bit more of a pause for that one. But we did get some official tariffs. So one that everybody thought was crazy was a neighboring country is 35%, which is insane. So honestly, man, I don't know how this is going to go, but yeah, but we got 20% on Taiwan. I noticed this one, and I feel like since semiconductors are made there, some of the stocks like Nvidia, AMD, and other AI stocks can probably go down from this tariff. But honestly, man, I was hoping on seeing like 10 to 15 on that one. And then we got some other tariffs too, if you guys are interested in these ones. But South Korea official 15%, so that deal was made. Vietnam 20%. And honestly, these ones don't really matter too much. Now, what we're kind of waiting on is an official tariff with China, the EU. I think EU is official with 15%, I believe. I believe that one was out. Mainly just watch EU, China, and honestly, maybe Canada and Mexico can be a little bit bigger as well. So those ones can truly move the market overall. These little ones are also going to move the market a decent amount too, but honestly, man, we're already seeing a bigger sell off. Now let's get into something that surprised us a little bit more, and that's going to be Apple's earnings. They beat expectations and analysts by a lot. People didn't think that this one was going to beat, but they did. And their iPhone sales beat expectations. And honestly, iPhone sales were up strong double digits versus the iPhone 15, meaning that more people are upgrading to the 16. Comment down below if you guys have the 16. But the EPS was 157 versus 143. Revenue 94.04 billion versus 89.53 billion. iPhone revenue 44.58 billion versus 40.22 billion. Mac revenue was 8.05 billion versus 7.26. iPad was 6.58 versus 7.24, and that one didn't really beat. But the iPad, I think the Mac isn't really down too much, but iPad and I think wearables was lower than expected. Other products revenue was 7.4 billion versus 7.82 billion. Services revenue was 27.42 billion versus 26.8, and the gross margin was 46.5% versus 45.9 expected. But overall, Apple didn't really look too bad, and this is their biggest revenue growth since 2021. With that all being said, man, we did rally up to that 215.5, but everybody knows that infamous 215.5 to that 216 level is a big level that it just hasn't really broke recently, honestly. And this is a level that I want to watch in the future. But honestly, with the overall market certainty, we are falling back down. So if you guys are in any Apple plays, good luck. Because honestly, man, I don't think we might fall down even more. We're falling down a decent amount. And I think it's just overall market certainty. Apple did pretty good and they did pretty decent, beat expectations. But with that all being said, man, the overall market certainty just isn't really looking too good. And it's not really good that they reported right before they reported the deadline, basically, or the tariff deadline. So honestly, this might affect Apple stock overall. So if you guys are trying to get some trades afterwards, that might affect that overall. So yeah. Next one is going to be one that sold off a decent amount, and that's going to be Amazon. So they beat their earnings basically, but honestly, man, not really by too much. But the earnings was 1.68 versus the 1.329, and the revenue was 1.67.7 versus the 162.19. Their revenue beat a little bit more than their EPS, but with that being said, man, it didn't really do too bad for their earnings, but I guess it just wasn't enough for Wall Street in general. So they did fall down a decent amount. This might be your time to get in, but I would recommend waiting a little bit. I might watch that 210 to that 200 level to maybe scoop in to a play basically. But honestly, just have your patience with Amazon in general and have your patience with this market, because this V-shaped recovery can make you a lot of money, especially if you play stocks to the downside and to the upside afterwards. You guys can make a lot of money. Just don't risk as much money as you would be risking normally, and don't risk your profits. Just honestly, just save the profits for now until we get into a good V shape, and then that's when you can put your profits in, because we see how this market can recover. So some other things, man, that might be bringing down the market as well. We had the Fed meeting, and now the expectations for a rate cut in September dropped down to like 47 to 45% from the previous 67%. So that did bring market certainty down overall. We do have some data that might be able to move the market, maybe save the market, but not too much. So data yesterday didn't really do too bad, but the initial jobless claims was lower and stuff like that, so that's okay. But with that being said, we do have U.S. employment report, unemployment rate, hourly wages, wages over year. We have appearance, PMI, ISM, consumer sentiment, construction sentiment, or spending, sorry. And then we have some speeches and auto sales. But the consumer sentiment is probably going to be a little bit bigger, and then maybe some employment reports, and then the PMI, of course. So keep all this on your mind and on your radar. That's going to be 30 minutes after the market opens, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or no, not 10 minutes, 20 minutes before, and then an hour before for the other data points that might move the market overall. But with that all being said, man, let's get to some supports and resistance. I'm only watching a little bit of stocks today. It's Friday, man. It's time to lock in some profits. And if you guys took a loss, let's prep for next week, okay? Because it's okay, because this week was kind of up and down. With that being said, first one we're going to look at is AMD, and I'm looking at AMD to the downside for now until we get a little bit of a recovery. Maybe that V shape that we were looking for, I'm going to be mentioning that a lot, but the V shape is probably not going to be there as well, so keep that in mind. With that being said, to the downside, I'm going to be watching that 166.5, 162, and that 160 level flat to the downside. If we do start going up, we'll watch that 170, 172.5, and that 175 level. For the SPY overall, man, some key levels, I kind of gave you guys some earlier, but with that all being said, man, I'm going to be watching some tinier levels. So first level is indeed going to be that 624, 622.5, and then all the way down to that 621 level to that 620. Below that, I'm going to look at 618.5, and then that 615 level. To the upside, if we do start inching up higher, which I highly doubt, it's going to be that 627, 629 to 630. With that being said, man, only trade with the market. Don't trade against the market, because that is the way that you can lose a lot of money. I learned that the hard way when I first started trading. And honestly, it's just good to just risk a certain amount of money. Let's say you're risking only $300 a trade, and let's say you double that, you make $600. Just have that $300, maybe scope out another trade with that later on. But that $300, you're going to trade again. You're not going to trade that $600, and just keep it minimal and just trade with the market, and then just see some key levels of supports and resistance to play those plays. So if the market is overall going up, play upward trend. But right now we're kind of looking a little bit more bearish, but short-term bearish. We're not really bearish fully, but it's short-term. So just look for some, levels to bounce upwards and then bounce off of, and that's when you play your put option. With that all being said, though, please take your time. Comment down below any other stocks that you guys are watching. Smash the like button, subscribe. Let's get to 500 subs. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Good luck trading today, guys. Peace out.